I'd like to call the meeting of the Santa Fe Planning Commission for December 19, 2024 to order. Please stand. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag. The approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
A second?
I'll second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have any, the approval of the minutes for November 21st, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? You have a second?
I'll second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda. John, can we vote on those together?
Mr. Chair, you may.
Okay. We have,
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve both cases on the consent agenda.
thank you. Do we have a second? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. New business. Case number 24-5210. Jessica Gonzalez, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Gonzalez, Development Review Specialist Senior with the Growth Management Division. ORR Acquisitions LLC, applicant request approval of a CUP to allow camps, camping, and related establishments on 3 lots. These lots are zoned residential estate. Appendix B, use matrix of the Sustainable Land Development Code, Ordinance 2016-9, illustrates that camps, camping, and related establishments is a conditional use within Res E zoning. These lots are currently addressed as 946, 956, and 1 unassigned address at Old Las Vegas Highway, SDA 2, Commission District 4. The applicant is requesting approval of a CUP on the 3 subject lots to allow the use of camps, camping, and related establishments. If approved, the applicant will propose to consolidate the 3 lots along with an existing 8.03 acre tract that the Santa Fe KOA Journey Site is currently located directly to the west, and expand the Santa Fe KOA Journey Site to a total of 13.4676 acres. The expansion of the Santa Fe KOA Journey Site is dependent on the CUP approval for the 3 subject lots. The existing 3 lots are zoned residential estates where the use of camps, camping, and related establishment requires approval of a conditional use permit. 2 of the lots are currently developed, but the applicant is proposing to demolish all existing structures on those lots. The existing KOA Journey Site that is directly to the west of the subject lots is zoned commercial general, where the use of camps, camping, and related establishments is a permitted use. The applicant has addressed the CUP criteria, and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to allow the 3 subject lots that are zoned residential estates where the use of camps, camping-related establishments requires approval of a conditional use permit. The use is compatible with the current development within the affected zoning district. The use will not impact adjacent land uses, and the application satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.5. On November 14th, 2024, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended approval of the CUP with staff's recommended conditions. Staff recommends approval of a conditional use permit to allow an existing 8.03 acre Santa Fe KOA journey site is zone commercial general where the use of camps, camping, or related establishments is a permitted use, and expansion or change of the existing site requires a site development plan. The 3 lots to the east are zone residential estate where the use of camps, camping, or related establishments require approval of a conditional use permit, subject to the following conditions. Mr. Chair, may I enter these conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. If the Planning Commission finds the CUP criteria has been met and recommends approval of the CUP, staff recommends the following conditions be imposed. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record. Thank you. At this time, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. Do we have any questions of staff?
Yeah, I guess I was, were you saying camps, camping, and related establishments? What are those?
Mr. Chair, that would just fall under camping. Anything that's related to camping or campgrounds?
I guess I'm still confused, like restrooms or showers or, I'm just curious. It's.
Mr. Chair,
Sure. And another quick question. What is the water, all these camps have water? What is,
Mr. Chair, they do.
they do? Is it well water? What is it?
Actually on a community water system. They are not on a private well. They're on a community water system.
Any other questions of staff? Mr. Pava?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. I do have a question for staff. If this conditional use permit were to be approved, is there a plan to merge the lots into one lot? Or are we still having 4 lots, the 3 individual lots plus the original lot?
Mr. Chair, they may look into consolidating.
I'm sorry, say it again?
They may look into consolidating the lots.
I see. Yeah, the reason I ask is if the conditional use is granted on the lots that are zoned RE, I think that's what they are, and then the original lot is in another zoning district, I'm wondering how that's going to play out. I mean, I suppose how would it be otherwise delineated on zoning maps?
So, Planning Commission Chair, Planning Commission members, it would remain a split zoning with portion of the lot being commercial general and then the other portions remaining residential estates.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had for staff would be, looking at the site plan, when I contrast the existing layout with the proposed layout, it seems, shall I say, very efficient with the new proposed site plan. I suppose it's fine, and are there any standards that we have in the Sustainable Land Development Code regarding campground siting? Does this all comply?
Mr. Chair, Commission members, this is compliant and in accordance with our SLDC, so it meets all criteria set forth. This is why this is coming before the Commission today.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pava. Any other questions of staff? Carl? Okay. If not, do we have the applicant here, Mr. Manzanares?
I do. Nathan Manzanares, New Mexico Land Solutions, 915 Mercer Street. Thank you. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. I'm representing OOR Acquisitions, and I have a brief presentation to give want to thank staff for their thorough review of the project and being extremely helpful throughout the whole CUP process. So as mentioned, we are doing an expansion of the KOA located at off of Old Las Vegas Highway. The KOA is actually the existing portion that is zoned commercial general is a legal non-conforming use. And that is why there is a difference in zoning. That area has been around prior to the adoption of the Land Development Code in 1981. And our clients have acquired the 3 lots to the west and are looking to expand the site. So as mentioned, this is the existing KOA here. We're also doing some substantial infrastructure upgrades to the area. One of the bigger is reducing the size and efficiency of this outdated lagoon, which is the wastewater treatment system for the existing KOA and the expansion site. There are some existing structures here that are residential structures that will be demoed. And I'm just going to go over to the site plan. Some of the expansion details include increased campsites, upgraded amenities, improved infrastructure, and enhanced landscaping. As mentioned, we're adding additional sites to the west. We're going to have a loop road system that's been approved by the fire department that will allow for proper circulation for both the RVs and emergency vehicles. We're also putting a gated emergency access here that will serve as another entrance to the site. There's also a number of fire hydrants within the vicinity of the existing KOA and the proposal site. So there's a total of 3 sites, fire hydrants, all within the required 1,000 feet of every space. So with that, we're also adding a bathhouse / amenities building that will have restrooms and laundry facilities for guests. And this is an example of a similar site that OOR has done. This is in Montana. This site is actually comparable in both acreage and spaces. So this is kind of giving you an idea of what is to come at the Santa Fe site. Really, I hope to see that one day. It's a pretty cool site. And with that, I stand for any questions. Thank you for your time.
Any questions of the applicant?
Yes, I do. So from the plan that you presented, it looks like there will be no entrances on Camino Gurule except right at that elbow turn. Is that a commonly used entrance, or is that just an emergency egress?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abo, so you are correct. The primary entrance will remain. It will be upgraded to DOT current standards because it is grandfathered in, but we'll do a beefed up asphalt apron there. You know, we're also going to be fencing the property to provide some screening and buffering. The lots, or the Camino Gurule to the north, there really wasn't any serviceable entrances, but we did work with John Mablet, the fire marshal, to establish that gated emergency access, and that's in coordination with both County Public Works and DOT. And I think that that's going to be an ideal spot for it.
Great, thank you. I've got one other question I think is appropriate to you. In the materials, there was an analysis of the previous water consumption, and then you made projections based on that consumption for the kind of expanded facility. And so right now you get water from the Cañoncito Mutual Domestic,
Correct.
which I believe gets bulk water from Santa Fe County. And so are each of these individual spaces, are they, if I pulled my RV up now or in the future in this expansion, am I billed for the water I consume, or I just get a hookup and then you have a single master meter. How does that work?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Abo, I believe the way that Cañoncito is going to do it is there will be a master meter on the existing site and the expansion site. So they've had a lot of data on the existing master meter that's on the current existing site, and the new expansion site will have its own separate master meter, and KOA will be billed out monthly based off the usage. And
Right,
also
so-
it's very seasonal. As you know,
Right.
colder months, less people. So there is some fluctuation in the water usage for sure.
Right, and so each individual slot is not metered, you know, slot 10 can use nothing, slot 12 can use a whole lot, and they each pay the same amount to the,
It's included as
KOA.
part of the package to
Got
rent
it.
the space. Yes.
okay, thank you.
Wendy?
On the community water system, is the KOA allocated a certain amount of gallons per year, or, acre feet, or how they do it in that water system?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Piard, yes, so the existing KOA has an existing contract with the Cañoncito Mutual Domestic Community Water, and they're in essence going to be doing the same exact contract on the expansion site. The lot spaces are pretty much comparable to one another.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy?
Just a quick question. For the bathhouse, do you guys have an architect?
That's been quite the journey. We're actively looking. This is actually from one of the sites that they did in Idaho, and it's conceptual right now. It's subject to change, but we will definitely, use earth tone colors, color scheme, and make it appropriate to the area. But right now, we're actually still looking.
Okay, as long as you guys know you need one, that's all I'm
Oh,
asking.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just making sure.
And we're, if you know any, we're actively trying to find one.
Nathan, I've got a couple of questions. You know, I saw your water usage, and you said a chart there for like 15 months. And it seems that the water usage doesn't go down very much during the winter months. Now, how many permanent residents are there year-round? Like, are they permanent?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe there's any permanent residents. We do have an on-site manager that lives at the KOA, but I don't believe that we provide any long-term rentals, if you will, to the clients. Yeah. Oh, I could actually, Mr. Chair, if I could get the ORR team sworn in, they can provide some insight.
We'll get to him later.
Okay.
He has an opportunity to speak. I just wonder, because I saw the water usage, and it was 15,000, 20,000, summer months, 60,000. And I wonder, in the wintertime, if there's permanent residents there, or how many, what's the stay of people that frequent that park?
Yeah, I'd be happy to have Trevor or James come up
I
and,
will ask, yes.
perfect.
Um,
Would you like me to
if
bring him up,
not,
Mr. Chair?
Do we have any other questions of Nathan? If not, the managers can step forward and make a statement. Get sworn in for the record.
Yes, we do. Sure, Chase Becker.
Yes, Jim Armstrong, 107 Meadow Road.
14 Meadow Lake Drive. Heath, Texas. Go ahead.
Should we talk at the same time?
At the same time.
I'll say a word, you say a word.
Go ahead.
There are no permanent residents at the campground. Throughout the busy season, call it April through kind of the end of October, the average stay is about on average 2 to 3 nights, 2.5 nights. Over the winter months, our staff's there, our general manager lives there, but there are never any permanent residents in the campground, nor will we ever have any permanent residences in the campground.
Are you familiar with that area?
Yes,
You became familiar with it?
we became very familiar with
How
it.
was it that you decided you were gonna take over the KOA?
So Chase and I have been good friends for a long time. We started buying campgrounds, started looking at them back in 2018 and bought our first one in 19. And we own a little over a handful now, and we've always loved this. I've come to Santa Fe and skied Taos a bunch of times, and I've always loved this area. My wife and I, frequent it and just think it's a wonderful town. And we found out we own 2 other KOAs, and KOA management were friendly with them, and they told us that Jerry Hodges, the prior owner, was thinking about selling, and we jumped on the opportunity, introduced ourselves, had a great conversation with him, came out and visited the property, and just fell in love with it and came to an agreement with them and closed on it in early September.
Thank you. Any other questions of these 2 gentlemen?
Yes, I wonder if you'd go into a few of the details of your changes to the wastewater system. Looking at an aerial, there's, a big lagoon, and so what's going to happen there?
This is one thing the neighbors were really happy about, is we're getting rid of the lagoon. The lagoon is going to be gone, and we're going to put in a modern drip system. We're working with Lauren Allen from Allen Engineering, and he's designed it and put it all together for us, working in conjunction with Mike and Nathan and the rest of the team. So the lagoon will be gone, and it'll be a completely modernized system.
Arl?
And Mr. Chairman, obviously for the wastewater, you have to go through the environmental department to get permitted and inspected, is that correct?
Yes, and Lauren Allen of Allen Engineering has handled everything for us.
Thank you, thank you.
Do you have any more questions of these gentlemen? If not, this is a public hearing. Anybody in the public wishing to speak for or against this case, please step forward. Anybody online? Dominic?
Mr. Chair, Commission members, we have nobody online.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Appreciate the time.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you. If there's no public comment, we'll close the hearing and bring it back to the commission. What's the wishes of the commission?
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question of staff?
Yes. Yes, you may.
If I remember correctly from reading the materials, I can't find it right now, but one of the conditions is that water consumption will not exceed some number of acre feet per year. And so what's the compliance process for that? And what happens if those numbers are exceeded? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this is supposed to be reported annually on January 31st of each year. And those numbers are right now kind of just as an honorary system right now, but we are putting together our own program and our metering program with sustainability. And soon it'll be housed in Public Works, hopefully. And that'll be taken care of there. The reports will go to them.
If I could, I think you're thinking about domestic well monitoring. This is really, they get all their water from the mutual domestic, which gets its water from Santa Fe County, wheeled all the way out there. And so I'm just wondering, is that requirement going to add kind of a useful burden to everybody? Yeah, so it's an honor system kind of thing with no real enforcement mechanism? I just want to sort that out.
Mr. Chairman, I know the state engineer's office is the one that administers water, and so they do go to the mutual domestic. I don't know, they're supposed to go to the mutual domestics, and I've seen where they've put compliance down on some of them that have exceeded their water right levels, and then they either have to curtail or they have to buy more water rights or something along those lines. So,
Well,
Well, I happen to know way too much about that particular mutual domestic, and and they did overconsume. They shut off those wells, which is what you can't consume from. Then they now get water from the river like all of us, and so it's kind of tangled. But I'm just wondering, is this a meaningful requirement to impose a reporting that may not have the validity if they were pulling water out of the ground? Thanks. Not a big deal, but
Thank you, Eric.
I mean, a good point is brought is if the state engineer is supposed to administer it, does the county administer water, or how does that actually work? Should it be a requirement of the county, or should it be a requirement of the state engineer's office?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this should be a both. They need to report to both agencies because it is being supplied by Santa Fe County as well. So they will get those numbers as well. I do believe it's a valid request or condition imposed to the applicant.
Thank you, John. Now,
I'll move to approve with staff conditions.
do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If no discussion, those in favor of the variance or conditional use permit signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Case approved. Thank you, Nathan. The next case is Sergio Aldana, Destiny Romero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. Destiny Romero, Building and Development Review Specialist. Sergio Aldana, applicant, requests a variance of Chapter 8, Table 8-43, Dimensional Standards, Existing Neighborhood, to allow 2 primary residences on a single lot. The property is within the existing neighborhood plan development district, which allows for 1 single-family residence per 2.5 acres. The property is located at 44 Vista del Monte. The applicant met with staff to submit an application to allow an additional primary residence on the property on September 26, 2024. The applicant is requesting a variance of Chapter 8, Table 8-43. The applicant states that his current mobile home located on the property is 1,400 square feet, and the mobile home he purchased and is requesting to also place on his property is 1,967 square feet. The property currently contains 2.5 acres with 1 well on the property that will be shared by both residences. The property contains 1 septic on site. Applicant has received NMED approval for a second septic system for proposed second dwelling. The property is accessed off Vista del Monte and will share a driveway. The applicant states that he thought it wouldn't be a problem due to surrounding neighbors with the same amount of property having added additional mobile homes to their lots. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria, and staff has responded to the applicant's comments as contained in the memo. On November 14, 2024, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended that the applicant's variance be denied. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this request for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented do not support the request for a variance. Staff recommends denial of the request for a variance of Chapter 8, Table 8-43. If the Planning Commission finds that the application has met the variance criteria and recommends approval of the variance, staff recommends the following conditions be imposed. Mr. Chair and Commission, may I enter the conditions into the record? Mr. Chair, I would like to read these conditions into the record as staff has made changes to conditions 3 and 4 and added condition 5 to read as follows. Condition number 1, applicant shall comply with fire marshal conditions of approval. Condition number 2, applicant will need to obtain a mobile home placement permit through Santa Fe County. Condition number 3, accessory dwelling units will be prohibited. This shall be noted on development order. Condition number 4, the applicant shall share the driveway and well on site. And condition number 5, the applicant shall comply with NMED approvals for second septic for proposed dwelling. Mr. Chair and Commission, I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff? Oh, Mr. Pava. Go ahead.
I'm gonna put a little button here, a little light will light up for you. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for Ms. Romero. When I read the packet, I saw that page 4 of the staff report says that the hearing officer recommended the variance be approved. And for the record, I know you just read in what actually I understood to be the case. So for the record, I'd like to make sure we understand that staff report should say that the variance be denied.
Mr. Chair, Commission, that is correct. That was a typo by staff. It was supposed to read denied instead of approved.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we got that in the record. Thank you very much, Mr. Romero. That's it.
I did see that also. Do we have any other questions of staff? If not, is the applicant here? Mr. Aldana?
Good afternoon. Yes. Sergio Aldana, and my address is 44 Vista del Monte. Santa Fe.
You can state your case if you want. Talk to us.
Well, we bought this mobile home to put on my property. I didn't know it has to be considered my guest house, because that property can make a guest house. It had to be only half size of the house, so it would be only 1,500 square foot. And the house, the mobile home that we bought for my son, it's 2,000 square foot. I didn't know, I already have it. I'm just asking for variance, 500 feet.
Do you have any questions of Mr. Aldana? Mr. Aldana, if there's no questions, I have to call a public hearing and have people from the public speak for or against this case, so you may sit down.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Any members of the public? Anybody online? Dominic?
Planning Commission Chair, Planning Commission members, there is no one online willing to speak.
Okay, then the public hearing is closed. We bring it back to the commission. What are the wishes of the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Pava?
One further question, if I may indulge, for staff regarding the existing, thank you, Ms. Romero, regarding the existing structure on the site, is it also a manufactured home?
Mr. Chair, Commission, yes, sir, it is.
Looking at the site aerial, it's hard to determine exactly that. It appears that there's some other structure maybe built around it or next to it, maybe a garage or something like that. So my question is staff confident that the heated square footage of the existing home is as stated in the report? What was it, 1,400 something?
Mr. Chair, Commission, the existing residence is 1,400 square feet.
And that's
with
all?
the proposed being 1,967 square feet.
Staff does believe that those numbers are accurate.
Yeah, so the 1,400 plus or minus is heated, livable area. It was just hard to look at the aerial because there was kind of two rectangles. One kind of looked like a manufactured house and the other was something else. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mr. Pava. Any other questions of staff? If not, what are the wishes of the committee? May I have a motion? If not, I'll make a motion to approve this case with conditions.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mendoza? Mr. Pava? Do we have I guess was that unanimous? Do we have a unanimous? Okay, thank you, Mr. Aldana. Your variance is approved. Next, we have a case number 245120, Annette Montoya, variance. Marie Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Marie Martinez, Building and Development Review Specialist with the Growth Management Division. Case number 24-5120, Annette Montoya, variance of density. Issue: Annette F. Montoya, applicant, along with tenants in common, Anita Montoya, Joanna M. Anaya, Paula L. Abbott, and Anthony V. Montoya, are requesting a variance of the SLDC Chapter 8, Table 8-10, Dimensional Standards, Res E, to allow one dwelling unit per 2 acres in order to split the existing 1-acre parcel into 4 2-acre parcels. The 8-acre property lies within the Residential Estate Zoning District, Chapter 8, Table 8-10, Dimensional Standards, Res E, illustrates that allowed density at 1 dwelling unit per 2.5 acres for this zoning district. The property is located at 16 Verada A Tesoro within Section 9, Township 17 North, Range 9 East, Commission District 1, SDA 2, Parcel ID 91009632. History. The request of a variance of density is needed as currently the 8-acre parcel does not meet the minimum code requirements to subdivide into 4 2-acre lots as the SLDC Chapter 8, Table 8-10 Dimensional Standards, Res E, illustrates the allowed density as 1 dwelling unit per 2.5 acres for the zoning district. Summary. The applicant is requesting a density variance on an existing 8-acre parcel that was previously owned by the deceased Ernest Montoya, father to the applicant and the tenants in common. This variance request is being made to allow the existing 8-acre parcel to be subdivided into 4 2-acre parcels so that it may be divided equally between the 4 living siblings in Ernest Montoya's living trust. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria, and staff has responded to the applicant's comments. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this request for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements, and upon the applicant's agreement of condition number 1, has found that the facts presented would support the request for a variance. The use of a 4-lot minor subdivision with a total maximum of 4 dwelling units would be less of an impact to the adjacent land uses. Residential estate zoning allows for 1 dwelling unit per 2.5 acres. Hearing officer's recommendation. On October 8, 2024, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended denial of the applicant's variance of density. The written order and the minutes of October 10, 2024 hearing are attached as exhibits L and M. Staff recommendations. If the Planning Commission finds the variance criteria has been met and recommends approval of the variance, staff recommends the following conditions to be imposed. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, may I enter these conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Accessory dwelling units are to be prohibited. This shall be noted on the final plat of approval. 2, no further division of land to be allowed for less than 2.0 acres. This report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing records. Thank you, and at this time, I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Marie? Wendy?
So if this variance wasn't approved, then the lot would be split into 3.
Correct.
And on each of those parcels there could be a residence and an accessory dwelling unit.
Yes, for a total of 6.
For each of those 3 parcels. Yes. If the variance is approved, and then they'll have 4 residents on those 4 parcels, but no accessory dwelling units.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Pava?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Martinez, I'm a little confused, which is not unusual, but clarify, staff is recommending approval in your staff report because
Yes.
in the hearing officer's recommended order, item 13 says that staff recommends denial. I don't believe that's correct. The way I read your staff report was that you were recommending approval, that you found that it met the variance criteria, but the hearing officer states that you're recommending denial, so could you clarify that?
Yes, we had recommended, we had not recommended approval of the ordinance, but looking at it, according to like issues with water, we felt that the density as far as 4 2-acre parcels would be better than the 4 2.5 acre lots and with 3 accessory dwellings as well.
So I'm correct that I inferred that the staff recommendation to the HO was for approval with conditions based on your analysis, and the HO in their recommended order states that staff recommended denial, which is incorrect in the record. I want to set that clear. And the staff report, yeah, as you stated, the staff report does recommend approval for the 4-lot minor subdivision with a total maximum of 4 DUs, so on and so forth.
Planning Commission Chair and Planning Commission members, so at the hearing officer meeting, we were recommending denial, but after the implementation of the first condition that no accessory dwelling units would be allowed, staff then reconvened and we decided that it would be less of impact to the neighboring properties if a maximum of 4 total residences were allowed versus the 3 lots that would allow a total maximum of possibly 6 dwelling units.
Oh, that clarifies things. So there was actually staff was recommending approval, as I inferred, and the staff recommending denial was prior to that. Okay. So
That is correct.
clarifying for the record, staff's recommending approval based on what transpired before, during, and after the zoning, the hearing officers meeting. Okay. The follow-up question that I had is, were this to be approved and these lots, this minor subdivision happen, do the dimensions of these proposed lots meet the Sustainable Land Development Code? In other words, 100-foot for frontage and for width? No more variances would be required?
That is correct, Planning Commission member and Planning Commission Chair, that is correct.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Pava. Any other questions of staff? Eric?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to follow up. Has a conceptual plan of the subdivision been provided, of how it would be divided? And I might have missed things.
It was 4 lots at 2 acres.
And that layout has been provided in a site plan? I just didn't find that. Okay. Okay. D, okay, thanks.
Planning Commission Chair and Planning Commission members, it is Exhibit D, does show, it's a conceptual site plan that does show the division into 4 lots.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If not, is the applicant here? State your name for the record and be sworn in.
My name is Anthony Montoya. I live at 3385 South Ash Street, Denver, Colorado, 80222. And I'm presenting on behalf of my sister Annette, who is the original petitioner and couldn't be here today. Chairman, Commissioners, I thought I'd start with a little bit of history of the property. First of all, the property's been in the family since 1931. It was originally a 156-acre parcel purchased by my great-grandfather, Fabian Montoya. And they had 2 children, Fabian and Cressita, Julio and Ursula. Upon the death of Fabian, the land was illegally transferred to Ursula Montoya, who was the daughter of Fabian. Fast forward in 1989, Ursula Hayter attempted to sell the property, and it was deemed that the Montoya heirs were still possessed lawful inheritance claims to the property. At the time, there were 6 heirs total claims. 2 of the heirs, Gilbert Montoya and Michael Montoya, sold their shares to Rosina Romero Montoya and Ernest, my father, respectively. In 1990, the heirs and my father, Ernest Montoya, settled their claims with the Hayters in return for 35 acres that were both deeded and sold to my father and his siblings. In 1998, my father and the siblings agreed to sever common tenants through a binding arbitration to subdivide the 35 acres that were deeded and sold to them. My father's lot was 8 acres at the time. The remaining heirs held 27 acres in total. And my father chose his acreage in his lot because that's where he farmed as a child with his father and knew the property well. The family transfer in 2004, the heirs Rosina Romero, Marcelo Romero, Victoria Romero, and Antonio Montoya subdivided their lots through family transfer into a total of 14 lots, and they were all adjacent to the property we're talking about right now. Out of the 14 lots, 4 of them are 1.67 acres, 1 is 1.8 acres, and the remaining are 2.0 acres. So there's a precedent that there's some smaller acreage there done through family lot transfer. My father chose not to participate in the family lot transfer at the time for ethical reasons. He felt that apologize. He just didn't feel it was right that his children did not live in Santa Fe at the time. At the time, the EZC regulations would have allowed for a 5-acre split. Had he gone forward with it, he chose again not to. My father had always planned for a family lot split until his passing last year. I apologize. Thank you. Since the arbitration agreement, my father's invested a significant amount of time and money in the property. He's completely fenced the property. He's gated it. He's built up the arroyo to avoid erosion, and I'll show you pictures of that. He drilled a well with ample depth, volume, and pressure to support it. He has utilities and roads that are built to code on the property. He has 4 build pad sites that are backfilled, leveled, and with landscaping and drainage. We've gardened as a family there up until his passing last year, planting, weeding, harvesting peppers, squash, tomatoes, etc. And he's donated a lot of his fruits that he grew to the neighbors and other places in the city. He has a dedicated open space for gardening and the like in the same area where he gardened as a young man. And currently 5 of the 8 acres are agricultural exemption through the work of my father as well. What we're requesting is myself and my 3 siblings request approval of variance to allow for the family transfer of 4 2-acre lots. And as they stated before, the current zoning requires a 2.5-acre minimum. We request further that the lots be unrestricted. The past actions to the development have not had restrictions dating back to the Garrett Quintana, and of who's the developer of the property originally, and the purchaser of the original holdings. All applicants, all of us have children living out of state and would like to have the flexibility to have a guest house for visiting family. One thing I'll also say is if you know the property and you go out there, there are homes that I would guess the minimum size is probably 5,000 square feet. Where we are as siblings, we don't have the desire to build a 5,000 square foot home. We'll probably build something modest there, but would like to have an RDU to be able to have, or excuse me, an ADU to be able to have family visitors as well. The justification, the property in question, the 8 acres, was part of the original settlement agreement, so should therefore be entitled to the same treatment. In March 2011, the District Court of Santa Fe County, Judge James Hall, ruled that the 2.5-acre minimum lot size restriction was not binding upon the original 35-acre parcel, and anything less would create a hardship to the siblings. And to speak to the hardship, the 4 applicants each have children, so dividing either way, then equally to each, would create problems that would span generations. There's no fair or equitable mechanism to determine which applicants would share a lot, which would lead to resentment. And we do have work in progress on an association agreement for the 8 lots that includes road maintenance, fence maintenance, infrastructure maintenance, and unequal shares would be problematic as well. I also we were handed a letter of opposition coming into this from Mr. Wadley, one of the neighbors, who claims that the property is actually less than 8 acres because there's an erosion part of the arroyo. I wish I'd have known that because I would have brought pictures of where my father built it up. And there's a straight line fence, and I'll show you on the pictures here. There's a straight line fence that proves that there's not erosion from the arroyo that takes down the actual volume of the property. I have some pictures of the property as well. You'll see the gardens that my father did, the fencing. He's put a lot of work into it. Spent a lot of time there, spent a lot of money, a lot of his retirement. But these are pictures from last summer. You'll see his fencing, his gardens. You'll see the gate. You'll see the gate beyond walls where he has his build pad sites and along the arroyo as well. This is a depiction of the property. You'll see the smaller lots to the south of it. The kind of odd triangular lot on the top is the actual 8 acres. You'll see the roads that go into it. And again, they were done to code with the fire department involved in it. And then lastly, I think you asked about a conceptual site plan. The county requested a conceptual site plan on the subdivision. This is one that we had put together, and I believe it might be in the files. If not, it's in the deck here as well. It's not in your hard copy, though. It was something I added later. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Do you have questions of the applicant? Wendy?
I have a question about the Gabions. Are they on the bank of the Arroyo?
They're in the Arroyo as well as on the bank, yes. They go down in the Arroyo. It was quite a project.
So he received a permit from your
He
Army
did,
Corps
yeah,
of
it was
Engineers.
permitted when, that was probably done, I'm going to say maybe 15 years ago.
Okay. That's a lot of work to put that in.
It was a big project. I was actually involved in it. It was a big project.
Carl?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Montoya, looking at the site map, is there one home currently on this?
There's not any home currently on it, no. We have a, and I believe in the entry, they talked about a Connex that he has out there. My father moved a Connex out there and was permitted to do it. And the reason he did is because he was getting tired of hauling his tools back and forth. So we put a Connex out there. It's powered. He keeps his tools in there to keep locked up and keep safe and keep out of the elements in the winter.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Montoya, is there, currently how is this property served with a well, or a well would you need to be drilled, or?
It's served with a well currently. It's hard to tell if I can, maybe it'll, oops, I screwed up. But there is a well on the property that we use currently to water the vegetation in the garden. Some of the fruit trees are on the property as well. So it does have a well.
And that well has is that the intent, is to use the one well for all the 4 lots, or?
It's really, I think we'd have to wait until we get to the permitting process to see if that would be allowed. My guess is we may have to do a variance, or not a variance, but have a second well. But I do know that it's a fairly strong and fairly deep well, and the pressure's ample. But again, on a relative basis to what's required out there, I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Carl. Any other questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chair?
Anybody? Yes, Eric?
Hi, I've got a question about, in looking at the shape of this parcel, there are a couple of questions I have about access. So right now, the access comes from the south, and it pretty much takes, a quarter of the lot to the south. So that's a legally described easement through that property, is that correct?
When we did the hearing with the siblings, they were required to give us an easement along the property. I wish I could bring the site, oh, here we are, I'm sorry.
We have.
Give me a second here. Okay, so you'll see where the road goes onto the property. The lot on the road, as you're entering, that lot was given us by the siblings as well, and that's Antonio's lot right now. So that's really the only place and that's not our property. The road itself goes along the property line on the side, which is part of the setback as well.
So
Which
right
would be part of
above
the
the
setback.
word Fabian,
I'm sorry?
The road that goes north from the word Fabian, that goes through a small parcel, and is that owned by one of your siblings?
That's owned by Antonio Montoya.
And so that is something that he could develop if he chooses to.
He can
And
develop if he
also-
chooses it, yes.
And there is an easement granted to the owner of the big 8
There is, that's correct. That was part of the arbitration agreement, that easement.
Thank you. And then the follow-up question I have is, it's also about access. I believe in your testimony, you suggested there should be no restrictions on the use of this. And I want to make sure the conceptual layout you have, so there will need to, if this lot is split into 4 chunks, there will need to be surveyed access easements across. Even though you're siblings now, the future owner of the lots may not be siblings.
That's correct. Our plan is to have it, if we get the approval, is to have it surveyed and a plat done, and then the plat going in for approval. So the conceptual one was not done with a surveyor in mind,
Right.
but we agree with that. Well, we also, if you can tell from the roads, my father was very meticulous about his plans. The fire department has approved them. There's turnarounds. There's 2 turnarounds currently on there that were part of the requirement as well.
Great.
Or
Thanks.
hammerheads, I think they call them.
Thanks. That's all the questions I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Any other questions of the applicant? Mr. Pava?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me ask you, Mr. Montoya, in this handout, which we were just
Yes.
privy to, there's a statement about the desire to not have a condition restricting accessory dwelling units. As you know, the staff report recommendation is that it be restricted to only the primary residence without accessory dwelling units. I guess what I would ask is how hard and fast and set you, as representative of your family, are about that condition that staff is recommending.
You know, I started by commenting on the average size of the home in the area. There are large homes there. And I know that it's easy to look at it and say, oh, he's going to have this large home, and they're going to build large homes. There are going to be water guzzlers and energy guzzlers and everything else. Again, me and my siblings are not in a place in life to build something like that, number one. Number two, we're in a place where we have children that live out of state. I have 2 children that live out of state, and I'd love to have them come to visit. So I think anything that we build would be modest, number one. Now, I know that's kind of me saying that, but we would build something modest. Is it hard and fast? It's not. We're also asking for, you know, just the same treatment that the other siblings got in the 35-acre original development, and they are not restricted on those lots. And I would be concerned that they were not restricted on a 1.67 acre lot. That would be a concern of mine if I were, but that ship sailed. We're asking for 2 acres without a restriction on it. Again, we may use it, we may not use it, but again, if we did anything, I'm sure we'd be modest.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions? I want to ask a question of staff. Was there a condition that no additional dwelling units would be built on the property if it was split into 4 lots? Was that something the applicant agreed to, or that was a staff recommendation?
So that was a staff recommendation that was notified to the applicant, and at the time was agreed upon.
It was agreed upon?
That is correct.
And did I hear today in your presentation that you would not agree to that condition, or is?
Can I get some clarification on what agreed upon means? Because as I understood it, we've been going through the process. And so I guess I don't have an understanding of what agreed upon means in this case.
So I believe it was during the hearing officer meeting, Annette Montoya, the original applicant that was here, it was discussed with her that condition, and she did agree that they would abide by that condition.
Okay. But that also resulted in a denial, so for the record.
Okay.
No, again, I apologize. My sister couldn't be here today, so she's got more of the history of this than I do. So, but we both stand.
So are you in agreement
aligned
with
on
that condition at this time?
I'd like to see if we can go without exemptions on it.
What was that again?
I would like to see if we can go without any sort of restrictions, if we move forward without restrictions.
Okay. Now, this is, any other questions of the applicant? If not, this is a public hearing. You may sit down, Mr. Montoya.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and patience.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak for or against this case, please step forward.
I'm on the phone.
We have people online.
Yes, on the phone and online.
Would you identify yourself on the phone?
My name's Kevin Hansen. I live at 13 Vista Valle Grande, which is within the community that this property discussion's about.
Mr. Hanson, you need to be sworn in.
Okay. I'm online also.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth?
Yes.
And will you repeat your name and address, please?
Kevin Hansen, Hansen. Address is 13 Vista Valle Grande.
You may speak. State your
Okay,
case, please.
just wanted to comment, being a resident in the neighborhood and familiar with a lot of other owners in the neighborhood, we don't have 5,000 square foot homes. My home, I think, is probably roughly maybe 2,700 square feet. I do not have an accessory dwelling unit, nor do a lot of my neighbors. We do have family and friends that visit, and we do use a guest room to accommodate them. I'm in agreement with Officer Marilyn Herbert's recommendation that the application be denied for reasons stated in her recommended order. Now that we're even talking about, 2 acre, 4 residents, 4 accessory, it will have an impact in our community and on our roads. I'd also like to share a document. I don't know if I can do that by online. Is that something I can do from?
Are you still with us?
I'm still here. I was bringing up you see it? Are you able to see the document on my screen?
Yes, we do.
It's highlighted the Villa Don Fabian Road Association bylaws. And this is a document that was
No,
recorded on
sir.
my property. No one.
Sir,
Oh, you
please
can't
try
see
and
it?
share again. You were sharing the web page of Join the Meeting. Can you
Okay.
try to share one more time? We cannot see anything you're sharing,
I will do that. Thank you.
Sorry, but next time.
Meeting. Share. How about now?
Yes, we can see this Via Don Fabian Road Association bylaws, Appendix B.
Yeah, right. This is a recorded document on my property here in the community. And I just wanted to point out that if I scroll to page 2, the main purpose of this document was to state that the minimum lot size would be no smaller than 2.5 acres. You see that number 3 highlighted?
Yes.
And then the next page, I just wanted to show that that was endorsed by Ernest and Anita Montoya individually and as trustees of the Montoya Living Trust, owners of the 8.0 acres of Tract B. So the intent back in May of 2002 is that Mr. and Mrs. Montoya did not intend a need for a family split of 2 acres, and that they had placed a requirement of 2.5 acres in the area.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may, Mr.
Mr. Hanson, so
yes,
although the print is pretty small, what I believe we're seeing is something that would allow members of the Via Don Fabian Road Association to take some kind of action against or try and remove road access from. I'm trying to understand what is the value of this document to your argument of opposition.
well, the value was as the representative mentioned today, giving a little history of the ownership of the property. I also wanted to provide some history that Mr. and Mrs. Montoya had a preference or an intent not to allow anyone in our community to have acreage in less than 2.5 acres.
Thank you.
So there, that was
Unfortunately, it's my
it.
understanding that the county does not enforce covenants or bylaws. So you have a document here that is informational, but it has no bearing on what the county approves or denies. That's my understanding. Is that correct, Roger?
That's
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, that's an accurate representation of the county's position with respect to privately recorded covenants and declarations.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
We have anyone else? Oh, please step forward.
John Wolf, 18 Paseo del Prado, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87506. I would like to follow up on his question because I have the same thing, but it's written up as a legal CCR recorded with the county. Is that something the county identifies or agrees with?
You speak up?
I'm
Can you
sorry.
speak up a little bit?
Sorry, I'm not used to public speaking. I have the same documents, but they're in my property. They came across as CCRs, as restrictive covenants that were recorded with the county, not as a road association agreement. And I'm not sure if the county handles that kind of thing differently.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if I understand the question clearly, but if I understand, the point is that these were executed covenants that do contain restrictions on properties that are covered by that covenant. And if a member of the public is simply hoping to clarify the county's position, our position is that they are enforceable, but they're enforceable privately. They are private covenants. The county records them because they are legitimate documents, but they weren't insisted on by the county. The county isn't a party to those covenants, and the county doesn't take any enforcement actions with respect to those types of private covenants. We do acknowledge that they're perfectly appropriate and legitimate, but not that they're enforceable by the county, perhaps privately.
Yes, that was my understanding.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get the fine point.
There's other remedies for you to try to enforce those covenants on individuals, but not at the county level.
Okay, that's okay. Well, thank you for giving me a chance to speak. I also ask you to read the letters of opposition from other neighbors. I know for sure that several people have written in, and at the last hearing before this was tabled, there were 6 people in attendance in person and more online. When that was tabled, I think this time frame is a lot more inconvenient for people being close to the holidays, and we have people traveling. For context, my lot has almost 600-foot border with the property we're talking about to the north. Also, my house is tiny compared to what they're talking about. I have less than 1,800 square feet. So I hate having this cast as some sort of class warfare, but I think you'll find that most people who've moved into the neighborhood and who have made their lives there have done so because those covenants make us feel protected and at ease with how things would be developed. I would like to at least enter into the record an updated letter of opposition. I had mailed one before the hearing officer hearing. That appropriate hearing officer hearing? Anyway, the first hearing. I don't know if I can enter that. As far as I can tell, this request does not meet any of the criterion for variance, and it is definitely in opposition with our CCRs. I have sympathy for the family. I lost my mother recently, and we had a lot of things to split that are unsplittable. So sympathy goes out, but there are things that cannot be divided fairly and evenly. And my siblings and I just had to work those things out, and we were able to. So in general, I mean, what we would wish for more than anything is more information about this. As neighbors, I mean, it becomes an emotional plea, right? It's an emotional thing for the family. And for us as neighbors, it's a huge unknown, and that's what makes most people uncomfortable. No one has ever shared, nobody has reached out to us as neighbors, ever. No one shared the plan, the possible breakup of the lots, or talked about covenants that might be in effect. We rely on the CCRs we have to make sure people don't do things like put up barbed wire or bring in mobile homes. So if you disregard the CCRs, I think it would have a big impact on people's thoughts and sense of well-being. And again, we have chosen to make our homes and lives in that area. And I would hope that you would look at our opposition letters and take those into account. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, Mr.
Yes.
Wolf's letter is in the packet.
Okay.
That was an older version. I brought an updated version today, sorry.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question of Mr. Wolf?
Yes, Eric?
Mr. Wolf, are you aware of any lawsuits that have been filed by you or any of your neighbors in order to enforce the covenants that you're talking about?
No, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, thank you very much.
I don't think anything has been developed recently. I don't think anything's been developed recently that would kind of cause that to happen.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Do we have any other?
Can I just make a point of clarification?
You have to wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait till the end. Let's see. Dominic, is anybody else online?
Planning Commission Chair, Planning Commission members, there's nobody else online willing to speak.
Dominic. This is Annette Montoya. For the record, can I speak? Hello.
Planning Commission Chair, we have Annette Montoya, who is one of the applicants online.
Yes, okay. She can speak.
Ms. Montoya?
Hello,
may
County
I sw-
Commissioners.
May I swear you in first?
Yes, this is Annette Montoya. I live at 4903 San Luis Place Northwest in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you.
I have just a few comments. Mr. Wolf, who actually lives on the opposite side of the arroyo that my father got a Army Corps of Engineer permit for protecting that drainage area. He must have spent a lot of money to gabion support the embankment and then build the coyote fence on top of that. So he has preserved the arroyo in that area by getting a Army Corps of Engineer and working with the engineers of at the USAs to get that water flow directed in the right direction and away from people's property. I don't think Mr. Wolf had any monetary contribution into that because he is a new neighbor in that area. Meaning new neighbor, my father has had this property and been working on it for over 20 years. So that's the first point that I'd like to address is it's not an easy feat to go get and work with the Army Corps of Engineers. Secondly, at the end of our last meeting, when we had a board meeting, a county commission meeting, at the end of the meeting, the residents were concerned about the water. And so I brought up, but I know it wasn't on the record, but I brought up that how would 3 lots with 6 homes be more affected water-wise than 4 homes with 4 lots? And they looked at me like, well, that's a good idea. Why was it not brought up? For the record, Dominic just said that I agreed to that, but I would like to know and have it on the record of where I agreed to 4 lots with 4 residential dwellings. Ultimately, what we're trying to get is the same and equal consideration as the family transfer members from across the road. 1.67 acre minimum, I'm not even sure the county is going to allow a building permit on that, but that's just for the county to challenge next. So I don't really think that water is an issue. We have been working with the state engineer's office on the water usage because we do have some gardens out there, and they have told us that they will not deny us another well if it's for residential use. So with that, I think we've covered the Army Corps, we've covered the state engineers. We're here for Planning Commission now to request 4 acres at 4 lots at 2 acre minimum versus the 3 acre at 2.5 minimum requirement. That's all I have.
Or thank you. If
Mr. Chair,
anybody else online? You had your say already, sir. What did he say? Well, step forward then.
First of all, I do know that the gabion is a lot of work, but it forces the arroyo away from their property and onto mine. So the water flow is not channeled away from homes, it's channeled into my area, for the record. Also, I resent the idea that people who have recently moved here and made their lives here are somehow less valuable than people who have been here for a long time. I mean, we all see beauty where it is and try to make our lives here and have committed to this area. Don't live in Albuquerque, don't live in Denver, live in Santa Fe. No one that I know of in our area has this as a second home. These are our homes and our lives, so I resent the idea that somehow we are less valuable.
Thank you. Oh.
When,
I can hear you. It's
okay.
I was not the property owner at the time. At that point, it was owned by another. It was a 10-acre area that got subdivided into 2.5-acre lots maybe 15 years ago when I bought mine 8 years ago, I think. But it was completely undeveloped at the time.
okay, because they have a public, public comment period.
Yeah, so I think those were already there at that point.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I will close the public hearing, and Mr. Montoya, you have the last say.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Councilman. I just wanted to clarify, so 2 people have raised now the CCRs in the area. On slide 5, I note that in March 2011, the District Court of Santa Fe County, Judge Hall, ruled that the 2.5-acre minimum lot size restriction was not binding upon the 35 acres, and that included the CCRs. So that has been, somebody asked if there was a hearing on it. There was a hearing back when they did the lot split with the Romeros, and it was ruled then that they were not subject to the 2.5-acre CCRs. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Montoya, that was in 2011?
2011, that is
Before the
correct.
Sustainable Land Development Code that currently is enforced was enacted?
That is correct.
Thank you.
So, and my apologies if anybody made him feel lesser of a resident out there. That was never our intent. So, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Montoya.
Mr. Montoya?
I have another question.
So in your
I'm sorry.
In your presentation, this parcel, this 8-acre parcel is part of the 156 acres that's been in your family since 1931.
Yes.
That's correct. Okay, and so all those other parcels are owned by other family members or other people that were heired out to this as the family grew?
Yes and no. First part of it is a bit ironic, to be honest with you, because the people that are our neighbors that are complaining are living on the land that used to belong to my father, number one. Number two, I explained how my father had an ethical problem with doing a family lot transfer at the time because we did not live here. The lots then were transferred by Garrick and Tana, and there's another developer, where they divided 121 acres into 48 2.5-acre lots through family transfer. Lord knows where they found 48 descendants to be able to do that, but nonetheless, they got it done. So there were some ethical issues in that one. So the lots that you can see on the plat here that are directly south are all owned by the Romeros, who are our relatives, yes. And they were part of the 35-acre settlement with the Haters. Does that help?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners.
Now, what are the wishes of the committee?
Mr. Chair, I have a further question before we proceed.
Yes, Mr. Pava?
Thank you. This is a question for staff. Is this, if this variance were to be approved and then some kind of a plat submitted to the county, is this in any way, shape, or form, could this be considered a family transfer subdivision?
So they could go for a plat exemption and do a family transfer, but even family transfers by today's standards, by the 2016-9 Sustainable Land Development Code, still have to abide by density, which is 2.5 acres, so they would still need the variance.
That's helpful. Thank you. The follow-up question would be, when you have a family transfer situation that rides with the lot versus when you don't, are there restrictions on the resale of the lot in the future? So if we had 4 new lots and they all go, each of these lots goes to one of the Montoyas, does the lot have to stay in the quote-unquote family or not?
Not with a family transfer. That would be a different plat exemption. That would be a 5-lot minimum exemption.
That's helpful. I appreciate the
5 year. I
clarifications.
apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pava. Any other questions of staff? If not, what are the wishes of the commission? Do we have a motion?
I'll motion. Excuse me. I motion to approve the variance for case 24-5120 with the conditions listed by staff.
Thank you, Wendy. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, could I verify that no auxiliary dwelling units shall be allowed on any of the 4 lots?
That's what I'm saying on the,
Thank you.
as
That was-
recommended by staff.
That was a condition, yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, with that motion, I need to ask a question of staff before. Is that fine?
We have discussion now, yes.
So, staff, if it went this route with a conditional use permit and it was 4 lots without an accessory dwelling, and these folks chose not to do this or accept this variance, then they're back where they started with, right? As far as being able to subdivide it 3 lots at 2.5 acres. Is that correct?
Planning Commission Chair, Planning Commission members, that is correct.
Thank you, Carl.
Go. Yeah, we're still discussing, I think. Carl's got
So, Mr. Chair, there is a motion, and it sounds like there's a second.
No.
Oh, no, second, okay, I'm sorry, my apologies. There is a motion. The only heartburn I have with this is, you know, I know this is a tough case for me personally, because this has been in a family for all these years. And, I mean, I get you know, there's 2.5 acres is what's allowable in the Sustainable Land Development Code. I know they're asking for 2 acres. This has been land in their family for years, and, you know, I do have a place in my heart where they should be able to have a home and follow under the same rules, because they've been holding on to this for almost 100 years. And so I just have I have a hard time with this. So as far as putting the additional restriction of no ADUs is a little bit hard for me, but we'll go along as the committee decides.
We have a motion, and do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Pava, okay, we have a second. Those in favor of the motion to approve the variance? Oh, yes, Karen?
You better do a roll call.
I was going to say the roll call.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
We will have a roll call.
Bava?
Yes.
Aye.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Thank you. For those online, if you wanted to appeal this, we're a recommending committee. If you wanted to appeal this to the Board of County Commissioners, get it on the schedule, talk to staff, and there is a avenue for you to appeal this. But for right now, this committee or this commission recommended approval. But it's not done yet. Thank you. Do we have petitions on the floor? Do we have communications from the commission members?
Yeah, I have one. I will not be present on the January meeting. Husband's having surgery.
Okay. Any other commission members want to say anything? Mr. Pava? Oh, Eric.
Mr. Chair, I think this is the last time you're going to be sitting in that exalted chair with the big hammer. I really appreciate the work that you've done, and thank you very much for all your service to the county.
Well, thank you. On that note, I just want to, I've served in this committee, the CDRC and the Planning Commission for many years. I want to thank the numerous county commissioners that appointed me and were confident in doing a job. I want to thank the commission members I've served with. It's been a very rewarding experience to serve with so many different commission members. I also want to thank the land use staff for all the hard work that they do. Without you preparing everything for us, we would not know what to do. So thank land use staff is very important, although a lot of times maybe you follow the code to the letter, and this commission is the one that the public can come to and plead their case, and sometimes they make some very compelling arguments, and we have to approve some of these cases. And I've learned a lot about land use matters, and that is about all I have to say, and thank you for everybody. And Mr. Jordan?
Thank you, Chair. I was waiting for you to get to the matters from staff.
Oh, matters of staff, matters, communications from the attorney. We have. Roger?
No, nothing other than thanking you for your service to the county, Mr. Commissioner, and wishing everyone a happy holidays.
Thank you. Matters on the land use staff. George?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. First, let me say thank you for your years of service. You will definitely be missed. So now we're going to kind of get into the wonderful topic of AES. I need some guidance from y'all. For the hearing officer, she had parties withstanding. There was a special hearing that she held. She determined, I believe, that we had 5 different people or groups apply for party of standing. Out of that, she gave parties with standing position to 2 different groups. I need to know, are y'all okay just keeping those moving forward, or do y'all want to have another hearing, a special meeting to determine groups with standing?
Mr. Chair, could you elaborate a little bit? So of all the many people who attended, she grouped, they were associations or something?
Yes, it was the San Marcos Association and the Santa Fe County Clean Energy Coalition. Both of them got groups of standing, which allows them to cross-examine during the actual hearing part of it. So before we get to the public hearing, when actually presentations are going, they have the opportunity to give presentations. They have the opportunity to cross-examine AES and staff.
Mr. Chair, did any other parties request standing that
We've had no new requests. We initially had 5 for the hearing officer, and she held a special hearing and went over each one of them with them. And out of those 5, she determined that 2 were parties with standing.
So they met whatever benchmark she had?
That is correct.
They were either big enough or
that is
a
correct.
large enough group or loud enough voices or something?
Yes.
That she... I'm just concerned, Mr. Chair, I'm just concerned that you allocate additional authorities to some people in a room full of voices. Some people, I'm sorry, I'm concerned that might tip the scales one way or the other. I don't understand why some people would get additional authority that other people may not have. So there might be a collective that did not request this authority. And I just don't know the process, but I wonder if you guys could elaborate a little bit.
I will try, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Abel. Individuals and a couple of organizations independently on their own submitted requests or motions. They were phrased differently, but they submitted requests to the hearing officer that they be given the status of a party with standing. As Jordan just explained, there are certain rights that go along with that status. There were at least 3 individuals and 2 organizations that made that request. I think a third organization may have made submitted a later request. And as Jordan identified, the hearing officer held a separate hearing, obviously prior to the substantive hearing on the case, and that hearing was specifically to address this type of procedural issue. Who would be given status as a party with standing, how much time parties would have to present their cases, procedural matters like that. I may be reading a little bit between the lines because I don't think her written order was perfectly clear, but the impression given was that because 2 of the organizations encompassed and represented large numbers of residents in what might be considered impacted areas, that she was comfortable giving the organizations status as parties and felt there was perhaps not the need for specific individuals to have the same status because their interests could, hopefully would be represented by the larger organizations that do represent citizens in that area.
Mr. Chair, just to drill in a little bit. So the hearing officer has recommended that these powers be given to certain groups for the forthcoming meeting, not for what happened at her meeting.
No, so that's what we're trying to determine.
Okay, got it.
If y'all are okay with her decisions, we can move that forward. If not, I will need to schedule a special meeting of the Planning Commission and let people come back and apply to y'all for parties withstanding.
So at the public hearing, these groups withstanding, they would be representing a population of residents, and they would speak for those people at the public hearing?
That is correct.
And so, but then other people could also come up and speak at the public hearing?
They can still speak at the actual public hearing. A party withstanding gives a presentation during the first part of the hearing, before we get to the public comment section. They give a presentation through that, and they have the right to cross-examine the other groups involved.
Okay.
But not the individual commenters. A party withstanding cannot challenge an individual commenter, or I'm just...
A hearing officer, they were allowed to cross-examine AES, and they were allowed to cross-examine county staff.
But not necessarily someone from the public who came
No,
up, who gave an
no.
opposing view. Got it,
No.
understood.
Well, it
Okay.
definitely helps in the public hearing to have a group because, you know, they can speak for, you're not going to have as many people coming up to talk if they have a group there representing them.
But they're
I have-
giving them special authority. So if I understand this correctly, it was the hearing officer that gave these people standing, and you're asking whether we want to follow that same model that was granted there, or do we want to be able to decide that ourselves? now?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Jordan, you mentioned that there were 3 groups.
There was only two. There was a total of 3 that she did not give standing to. 2 groups she did. The 2 groups that received standing were the San Marcos Association and the Santa Fe County Clean Energy Coalition.
And who were the 3 who were not?
Ashley Schnauer was one that requested it.
That's the former hearing officer for the Public Regulation Commission?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was I cannot say her name.
Camilla Brahm,
Yes.
who is a resident, and Dr. Scheiveld.
Yes. And then we had one that asked for it that was a clean energy Chamber of Commerce or something. They were a late arrival to it. They weren't really prepared for it.
Schiffbauer from the Santa Fe Green Chamber of Commerce?
Yes.
Sorry, what would happen then if we said we want a special hearing? What happens then? They come here?
We will schedule a special hearing in the first week or second week of January, and we will do the same process as we did with her. We will give them a deadline to file a motion for a special hearing. We will get those motions to you. Y'all will hold a special meeting. They'll kind of come up and plead their case and explain why they feel they have standing. And then somebody on the commission will have to write an order granting it or denying it.
So our option is to accept the recommendation of the hearing officer or do it again. We cannot reject the recommendation of the hearing officer.
I wouldn't even consider it a recommendation of the hearing officer with respect to these procedural matters. She had the authority to and did make that determination with respect to the hearing that she conducted.
Got it. Yeah, one other question. So if one of the groups comes forward, I think you said the San Marcos Association comes forward, does that stop any member of the San Marcos Association from being a public commenter?
It does not. We don't, when they sign up for public comments, we don't look at who they're associated with.
I think the difference is if they're a person of standing, they can cross-examine, so that's the authority that they have, other than the other residents.
Yeah.
How do we do this? How do we sort this out?
Well,
Is this the
I would
forum for us to
think,
hash this out?
I would think that we could go either way, either accepting what the hearing examiner did. And I'm speaking from my experience being on the City Planning Commission, where there's an awful lot of deference to process. And, you know, the lawyers can speak about about where this may go. And since we're going to be quasi-judicial anyways, and it's going to go to the county commission, maybe to keep it, my preference would be to keep it clean and kosher, is to either accept the hearing officer's approach or de facto do it ourselves again. And certainly that would seem logical and consistent leading up to the public meetings.
So that brings the question then is, if you accept what the hearing officer did, if there was other members that wanted, or other people or organizations that wanted to be a person in standing, we're at that point, we're shutting them out? Is that what would happen? Or we could add additional?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, if I can also add that another way that folks participated with more presence at the hearing officer meeting was they would cede their time to one representative. So the parties who were not given standing, those individuals, they actually were given up to 15 minutes because several community members in the room ceded their 2 minutes to those people. So there, I feel like that was a little bit of a balancing act, but it did ensure that those voices who were actively engaged were also represented during the meeting. And additionally, members of the public could participate on WebEx. They could watch the meeting on YouTube. The meeting was also recorded. So there's been a lot of ways in which the public was able to participate in that meeting. And we intend on replicating all of those points of access for the hearing that the Planning Commission will preside over.
Yeah, it would help if with those groups, and I've been in public hearings where we've asked people to choose representative to speak for everybody because we're not going to allow, and that would help if those groups with standing did that.
Roger, yeah, would accepting the hearing officer's decision, would that put the county in any sort of legal jeopardy? Would that cause some problems down the road if we just accepted what she has done?
It could, if what you're suggesting is, let's just have the planning commission accept the same parties in interest as appeared in the hearing officer proceeding and not permit any other parties to act as a party in interest or a party with standing. Yeah, I could see a situation in which, because this is essentially a de novo hearing that you'll be conducting, if somebody submits an independent motion to you saying, I want to be considered as a party with standing in the hearing before this commission, there's potentially a due process issue if the answer is simply, sorry, no, we haven't even heard your argument. We haven't allowed you to speak before us on this issue, but we've already told you that you can't do it. So
that was the point I was trying to make. Is that how do you open it up for that process if you just accept that order or that? How does that work?
Well, the safer approach would simply be to do what the hearing officer did all over again, conduct a pre-hearing procedural hearing specifically to allow people to go through the same process.
Mr. Chair, is there a requirement that there be other parties of standing? In these cases, there were no other parties of standing. This is a bigger deal, but is there a requirement to go through that exercise again? I don't understand the benefit in terms of hearing all voices equally of saying, you, and you get to talk because you were January 15th, you were in the room. You guys, too bad, so sad.
The SLDC and the county's rules of order do contemplate parties withstanding, participating, and as Jordan mentioned, they do have greater rights of participation. So the short answer is yes, I think that is contemplated, and I think if parties make the request to be a party withstanding, they at least have to be heard on that request and a determination made after hearing their position.
Mr. Chairman and Roger, just so I understand this, the options here are we could accept what the hearing officer, who they have granted, he or she has granted standing to, and proceed. We could grant those people of standing and open it up for others that are interested, but would have to have a hearing of some sort, or we could start all over as a third option, or potentially fourth, don't grant anybody a person of standing. Is that correct?
Sure. I mean, yes, I think you could craft any type of procedural approach you choose to.
So the only thing that we would have another hearing for is if we thought there'd be more groups, we would look at more groups that would want standing, and we'd make that decision?
Or if we wanted individuals to cross-examine staff, to cross-examine the presenters, what you're doing is you're setting up a structure for kind of two tiers of participants. And
Right.
that's why I personally don't, I don't think that it is an approach that gives us much clarity. If each group were limited, there are no limitations, there are only benefits. And so I just don't think you want to tip the scales. But this is just me. Thanks.
Jordan, can I ask you something?
Yes.
Are some of these individuals that are asking for standing, are they experts in this particular field?
I cannot really answer that. I don't know their educational or work background. They're just, the county views them as community members. I don't know their background.
Yeah, because I do know that in Santa Fe, we have individuals that are former scientists at Los Alamos, we have retired PhDs, and I mean, we have a core talent that it might be useful to hear them out.
So I'm
even
kind
if
of,
they don't have a group behind them.
Yep. I am kind of gathering, I think that we just need to hold a special meeting. I will send y'all out some dates and see what dates work for y'all, and we can do I want to say she was able to get it done in about an hour and a half. So maybe we can do it in about the same time frame, but we will just follow what we did with her. We will send the notice out for parties with standing. We'll let them follow the motions. We'll get that stuff to y'all. And then we'll just do a quick special meeting to let y'all determine essentially how this special meeting for AES is going to go. At that time, we can talk about time limits. We can talk about the yielding of the time to other members, and we can just kind of hash it out in more of a formal setting with votes, formal votes.
So this is a meeting just with the commission, or this is a meeting to allow others to come and ask for?
Yes, we will advertise it and ask for parties of standing. We will give them a deadline to file their motion to be a party with standing to us. And we'll try to do it a week before the actual special meeting day in January. And then we will get those to y'all. And then that way y'all can turn around and make the determination. But we'll try to do it right around the end of the first week to second week in January.
When's the actual public hearing? Wasn't it February?
February 3rd.
And that allows you enough time for legal advertisements, and it doesn't mess with the February hearing date?
It does not.
Good.
We cannot move that. We will look at a calendar tomorrow, and we will get it all worked out where the days are correct.
Good.
Mr. Chair, so how will you distribute to members of the public? You'll distribute to people who have expressed interest, and I'm wondering how will executives at PNM learn about this? How will people who might be able to bring some expertise and could benefit from that standing, how will they learn about this approach? It'll be on your website somewhere? Because if I could, right now, I cannot find anything about AES if I just go in blind to the website. If I have a link from somebody emailed to me, I can find it. But it's not on a calendar, it's on nothing. And you guys are really falling down on this. You got to get, you you got to get Daniel to put something on the website, says, hey, interested in this, go here, read all the documents, because right now they're buried.
So, Planning Commission Chair and Planning Commission members, we did legal notice through the New Mexican, and I believe we also did a press release on the website with our media team with the Santa Fe County.
Can you send us a link with all the documents? I've looked and I've seen some, but it'd be nice to be able to know where they all are that we need to review.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can send you a link, and we will get. Yeah, we will get it. It was back up there, and then it just got rotated out as the other stuff was added. So I will get them to put that back up on top.
But, you know, about the experts, they can still speak at the public hearing, even if they don't have standing. They can still, you know, give their presentation or give their, you know, talk. It's just going to add on and on and on to the length of the public hearing, and the more people with standing.
Mr. Chair, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan.
And JJ's laughing. That's not fair.
And the next thing is for those of you that are going to be around in January, the next commission meeting is January 16th, 2025. And all have a happy new year. And this meeting is adjourned.